No sound. Is there sound now? Now I see a mic going. Is there, can you hear me? So I'll just wait here until I get confirmation. There's a bit of a lag. No sound? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so now we have sound. Okay, so sorry about that. I was playing around with a bunch of settings tonight, and my good wife over here, well, she saved me. So I think you guys all deserve a dance, and here it is. There you go. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for attending. And it's been a great day.
I just run off.
Other than a few technical difficulties, so. Uh-oh. You don't think that grabbed? Okay, well, we'll just carry on with the show if it didn't. And tomorrow will be a new day, or next week when we go over this, so we won't sweat it. Yeah. So today we're going to cover a number of things, and the music didn't show up, eh? It didn't grab the audio off my files. Okay, so that's the desktop audio file that we have to grab, and I went into properties, and it should grab it. I don't know why it wouldn't. Let me just try something here. There it is. Yeah, so that now we got the audio, I think, coming through. So I think when you do a major overhaul in an OBS, you should go and redo all your settings. I had all my these, what do they call them? USB ports. I had all the USB ports unplugged. Worked for a bit? Okay. So there's a bit to setting up a studio like this. You know, oftentimes especially when you're pulling in a band, eh? And well, we do have a band here. Here they are. Just a band. So there's our band. We'll just shut them off. And there's a lot we can do here. You know, a lot of times we want to hear when the crowd's applauding here. So let's try that. So we're going to have a crowd applauding feature. So I'm just showing off some
like
stuff.
An eagle, and, I'm not scared.
You know, a little bit of Willie Nelson.
To spread my wings without a care.
The audience likes it, so you know, a little bit of music is good for us, good for the soul when we think of music and what it can do. I'm not musically inclined at all. When I was a kid, I took some accordion lessons, and I wasn't raised as a Jehovah's Witness. You see, I was raised in the world. I was, when I left home, I was searching for something. I don't know what I was searching for, but I guess if I was going to be honest about it, the Jehovah's Witness was a better place for me at that time in life. And you know, I found a kind of family there. I had some. I had good parents, very good parents, but I had a older sibling that was a bully, and I was the second in the family, so I got beaten up all the time. And we were raised on the farm, and it was back in the day when you know, parents would go to town. Well, where I lived in the farm, it was a half-hour drive just to drive to town. and then a half hour to drive back at least. And then, my father would give us all the chores to do. So my older brother would be the boss. And of course, I would have to do all the chores. But this went on until I was in high school, and all kinds of things happened. But then one day broke the bulliness. But he got into drugs, and he went into the oil field, and he went in a different direction than I wanted to go in. And it really upset my father. And I seen a lot of anxiety between my father and my older brother, and they were always at it and always fighting. There was a lot of hollering and swearing, and I didn't like it. I was a kind of a quieter kid. So of course, when I left home, I wanted to get the hell out, really. And my dad said, "Do you want to farm?" And I said, "No way. There's no way I'm farming." And so I moved out, and I met this girl, a Jehovah's Witness girl. I met a Mormon girl first, and the Mormon girl was a little bit out there. I went to the Mormon church, went to the tabernacle, and we drove around to the bishop's house. We went to the big meeting, and then you go to Mormons split you up. The women go here, and the elders go here, and the kids go here, and you come in for the main service. It's kind of a lot of churches do that. I remember when I was a kid, we used to go to the United Church. I was just in elementary school. And in the United Church, the kids went in the basement and did Bible stories, and I don't know what the parents did. I was too young. But a lot of churches do that. So what turned me off with the Mormons was we drove around and looked at the bishop's house, and it was a huge mansion. By this time, I was living in Kelowna, BC. It was kind of the Okanagan. If you know Canada, it's just like a paradise place. So we looked at the bishop's house, and I said, "There's no way." And she phoned me up, this Mormon girl, and wanted me to go pick fruit. And I said, "There's no way I'm going to pick fruit for a guy that drives a Ferrari, and you guys are all worshiping this guy. He's like some god to you guys." And so I didn't do that. And there was a number of other things with the Mormons that I can't say online. I have to write it down. Don't know if I can even publish it. But anyways, it was an experience. And then I left, or I quit that. And I met this, my buddy and I were up working blasting, and I was working on a blasting crew at a mountain, hammering out resorts. And my buddy had a girlfriend who had a girlfriend, and one day we were cruising around, and his girlfriend hopped in, and her girlfriend hops in the back. Well, guess what? Her girlfriend was a Jehovah's Witness. And now I didn't know nothing about this at that time, nothing, zero of Jehovah's Witness. I remember once they called on our door, and my dad kicked him out. He disliked Jehovah's Witness. He kicked him out. And I know we were do not calls because he really hollered at him. It's just the way my dad was. Now, I left home, and so I started going to these Jehovah's Witness meetings. And you leave home. Your parents, they were away in Alberta, and I was in BC or whatever. But I was going to the Jehovah's Witness meetings now, and I like this Jehovah's Witness girl. So it's how they get you in sometimes. I don't know. I don't think it was intentional. This girl was actually a living fringe. She had a worldly girlfriend. And I think a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses are like that. But she had a worldly girlfriend, and her father allowed her to associate. So now that I've been out of it, now that I'm where I'm at, I can see all of these details and how it all worked. So what happened is her father was worldly. He was not a Jehovah's Witness, and her parents were Danish, so they spoke all Danish and stuff. And but the father, he just sat in the corner, smoked his pipe, and read the newspaper. That's all I can remember of the father. And but he apparently allowed her to have a worldly girlfriend because her mother said no, but if you ask your father, I have to allow it. So the kids quickly pick up on that, and they ask the worldly father to get what they want because he's the head of the house. And you see, the Christian mother must accept that. That's the way it is in the Jehovah's Witness religion. We'll call it a religion at this point. So then she got to do that, and then she met me. And she met me, and she wanted to. We had an attraction. We liked each other. You know how that is. And I wanted, a clean standing girl that I could trust. And I was good with the no sex thing. I was okay with that. And I wasn't ready for it at the time. So it was okay with me. And so then what happened is the girl, we would cruise around and pick up the worldly girlfriend, and the Jehovah's Witness girl was always there, right? So they figured this all out, and we'd go cruising on weekends, and it was allowed. Now, then what happened one day, we wanted, to get closer. We wanted to date. So her mother said, well, go ask your father. Like, if you're going to ask me, no, I have to say no. So she went and asked her father. I came over for a meal, had a meal, couple of meals, and they'd known me by now. And the mother was really preaching at me every time she could, reading me the day's text and everything. But the father just sat in the corner, smoked his pipe, and I'd go drink snaps with him, snaps and tea. There's no snaps in my tea. So this is the reason I'm giving this story, because this is how easy it is to get into a cult when you're young. And so anyways, really nice girl. Her father says, yes, you can date. Told her that. He never ever told me that. But next time we pick the girls up, I can all of a sudden hold hands, and this is really cool. So of course I'm a young 18, 19-year-old, just out of high school, and this was I got involved with the religion. So we eventually dated, and I even gave her an engagement ring because I knew sexual relations were out and we're going to do it properly. Well, by this time I'd studied for a little bit. Still, I was not even an unbaptized publisher. I wasn't even and I gave her an engagement ring. So her mother said no, and she had to give me the engagement ring back, and that was the end of the relationship. I threw in the towel. And I didn't think about quitting. I was living, by then I had to move quite a ways away. It was like an 8-hour drive, so I was living in Calgary at the time, working, and I started my career in fire alarm. And so then I started studying with a brother, and I got involved, and I gave my first little talk, and still not an unbaptized publisher, not yet. And then I moved to Red Deer, another town, and by this time that girl's long gone. And I get into this other town, and still not an unbaptized publisher, but I want to be an unbaptized publisher, but I'm not. But I got involved with the young people. And this is another way that you can get trapped into these cults, is when you're young, you want to associate with young people. So that really trapped me, because they would phone me up. I'd be done work, and they'd phone me up, Vern, you want to go play soccer, want to play football, want to do this, want to do that. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun. And I looked forward to the weekends with that congregation, and we had a lot of fun. And in no time, I was an unbaptized publisher. In no time, I was up on the assembly. I was baptized in no time. Maybe a year. I was still studying, maybe a year, baptized. And then they throw you on an assembly part and make an example of you. And you're just up there. You just got baptized that day. And you're like, what's all this about? And the guy that studies with you, he's up there. He's the hero, right? Because he's baptized you. He studied with you. And this guy really did squat. He was just kind of a young guy. The old guy in Calgary did all the work, but this guy finished off the job, so he got all the assembly part. But that's what happened. And, then I got involved and I got baptized. And now I'm baptized into this. I'm going out in service, and, you place magazines, and there's an endorphin rush. So it works on your minds, and it creates endorphins. So all of these things that I'm telling you are endorphins, 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 endorphins. And that's how religions work. That's how cults work. They appeal to your needs, and they're going to attract certain people. And sometimes they're okay. It's okay to be in these places, because maybe out there it's worse. Maybe I needed to belong to a different family, and I could have got involved with a gang. And I could have been out selling drugs or something like that. I don't think I would, but you just never know how people are, if you get in the wrong family. So I got involved. I had the choice, it looked like at the time, to be a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness. And I guess I chose the Jehovah's Witness. And I think what attracted me is the elders were all poor. I went over to the Mormons and they were all rich. They all drove BMWs and they were all doctors and lawyers. They were chiropractors and they were all, at the time I wasn't interested in any of that. And I was more interested in the girl and what she worshiped. And they really seemed to worship the bishop. And when I got into the Jehovah's Witness religion later, the elders were all poor. They were janitors and window cleaners, and they sacrificed their whole lives, and they became pioneers. And the ones that they were all pioneers and examples. And this girl I was dating at the time, her brother, he rebelled. This was the funny thing. This is when you get unbelieving mates, right? And if the mother is really Christian, she should say, go to the father and say, if he's not, he has the final say. So that the son, her older brother, wanted to go to Europe and walk around like Jesus. So he grew his hair long, and I seen pictures of him, long, long hair, and he was walking around Israel where Jesus walked, and not with any congregations, just walking like Jesus. He was walking on the land with Jesus. And this is what they told me. And I seen pictures of him, and he'd send back postcards, and I never did meet the guy. But now I respect him. I don't think he stayed as a Jehovah's Witness. He rebelled. So now, when I think of rebelling, we had a talk today. Should probably save this for my son. But my son was 5 years old, and we're in the congregation. By this time I'm in the cult, raising a family, and many, many years went by, and my son's 5 years old, and we're in this little congregation in Cold Lake, and we just moved up there, and the elders says, come on down to the dock. And Cold Lake's a big lake, a big, huge lake. And they all, on July 1st, and they all watch the fireworks. In the U.S. it's July 4th, right? Well, here in Canada, it's July 1st. So we're all down there watching the fireworks explode over the lake. And my son looks at me and he says, Dad, he says, what's this all about? And I said, well, it's July 1st. And he says, what's July 1st? And I didn't know what to say. And I says, well, it's Canada's birthday. And he looks at me and he says, I thought we're not supposed to celebrate birthdays. And I said, well, there's the presiding overseer right there. And I said, come on over. And I said, tell him what you told me. And he did. And the presiding overseer whispered to his wife. They packed his family up. They all walked home. They walked away. The whole congregation left. And we left, of course. But my son was Pimo at 5. I don't think he ever believed any of it. But we did try to inculcate the religion into him. We're hoping to have him on our channel one day coming up, and he said he will attend. He's not in the religion. So we're talking about cults, and I looked at a list of cults. How many cults are there? There's a ton of cults. There's 15 notorious cults that still exist. There's 15 the Family International, 14 the Branch Davidians, 13 the Heaven's Gate. There's a lot of cults. If you are interested in cults, Owen Morgan, he's an ex-Jehovah's Witness. He does a fabulous job on his site. Probably many of you are signed up to him. He's a good speaker. I watch him on cults. What are the top 10 cults? Well, we're going to just take a look at a few. The 10 most disturbing cults are still active. And the YouTube, if you just search cults, it's full of it. You can watch anything. But we want to really find out on this channel tonight why. And I explained to you how I got involved and how it creates positive endorphins. And sometimes we can get involved in things. When we go back in life, never second guess what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But, having said all of that, what if I would have went a different direction, Catholic? Like, what's really different? If I wanted to be religious, I don't know, where would I have went? This has seemed to be what was presented to me by the universe, God. I don't know. I'm just rolling through my life. I'm a farm boy and didn't really think much about religion, but it just seemed to land in my lap. First girlfriend, second girlfriend, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness. What's that all about? Didn't know. I met the Mormon girl at the bus stop. We'd take a bus to school. I was in grade 12. And I met the Mormon girl and had a relationship with her throughout the end of grade 12, right after I'd graduated, actually. But I'd met her at the bus stop. Now, the biggest cults. The biggest cults are, who do you think the biggest cults are? Any guesses? The biggest cults? Let's see what we have here. The biggest cults are the three cults. What are the three cults? What are the four types of religious cults? Here we are. Now, the four types of religious cults are Christian Science, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, and Seventh-day Adventism. And we're going to take a look at their sites here later on. Those three, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, and Seventh-day Adventism. So it's funny, I've got involved now with two cults. And as I was a Jehovah's Witness, I really thought nothing of it. You know, we don't think about it while we're in it. And we don't really relate to the fact that we're in a cult. We're just in it. It's like a frog in boiling water. That's the thing. So we're going to identify what a cult is, what it means to be in a cult, and why we thought these were mainstream religions: Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, and Seventh-day Adventists. I don't know about Christian Science. It has that, the fourth major one, but it's a big one as well. Now, who are the members of cults? Well, lots of people. Give some famous people. What are the five big religions? Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism are five of the great religions of the world. And how long do cults usually last is a question. Similarly, it says to most former cult members stayed in for as long a time and found it difficult to leave the group. The average length of membership was almost 9 years for a lot of cults. I stayed in the Jehovah's Witness cult for 30 years. And then when I left, because it's a subtle type of a cult, we're going to talk about this in a bit. And when I left, it took, I had it in me. I left it, was disgruntled, so that's why I left. And then I carried it around in my head for another 10 years. So we're going to talk about how it gets into our minds. Now, do cults count as religions? Those are some of the questions. Cult is a term that doesn't refer to religion at all, but is applied to a social movement. People have intuitive feelings about how the word cult should be used, even when an organization or a movement meets the criteria of a new religion. So, there's some really bad, like some of the cults that create some crimes, some of the crimes of cults. Fraud, petty crimes, prostitution, drug-related offenses. There's one cult where they send women out as prostitutes to pull men in. And then there's another cult where it's all about the breasts. It's all about the men fondling the women's breasts, and it's very sexual. We noticed that there's so many cults. There's 3,500 cults in every little area in the U.S. So there's a lot of cults. We'll look at a few here. Now, some of the questions that come up was, what religion was Jesus? Was Jesus a cult? We can go all the way back. Some people look at even religion, period, as a cult. So, why do people join cults? Dr. Adrian Firmham describes in Psychology Today that humans crave clarity. So everyone wants clarity. Many people join cults because they believe they're being offered solid, absolute answers for questions such as good versus evil, religion, the meaning of life, politics, etc. So there's a lot of different cults. There's political cults too. What are the major reasons people join cults? Social problems. Some people join cults simply because they offer answers to problems that aren't provided where they're at. For me, so I joined the Jehovah's Witness, just started studying, and I moved up to a little town called Fort Saskatchewan, just outside of Edmonton. And I was working in Edmonton, but I stayed at my uncle's because I was just starting out in life. I had no money. And so I was staying and laying on the floor, sleeping in the basement in my uncle's place, and him and his wife. And so, and then down the street, there was a regular pioneer, just like I don't know, 5 doors down. And when I went to the Kingdom Hall, they lined me up with this regular pioneer. And so I just walked down to his house and study every Wednesday night or something. So I did this, and then I'd go to their meetings, whenever I could, if it didn't interfere with my work. So in no time, my mom and dad came all the way. They drove like 12 hours, came to Alberta, and visited me at my uncle's, and they had kind of an intervention. And they sat me down, and they would just work me over for, I don't know, it seemed like all afternoon. And so I got up and left, and I walked down to the regular pioneer's house and told them the whole story. And I was upset quite a bit. And what happened is it actually pushed me further into the cult, because now I felt like my whole family was against me, and they didn't know the Bible. And this was a thing that bothered me. No one knew the Bible. No one, my dad and mom were just fringe kind of Catholic, expelled, whatever. They didn't go to church. Farmers. They kicked people off that came from the church. We go to the United Church when we were young, but when we got older, no church. We had Christmas. That was it. So they sat me down, and they did an intervention. They said, this is wrong. It's a cult. It's like the Moonies. It's like these cults. And they said everything they could, but it pushed me into the cult further. So this is why we don't want to really push at our family, our kids and stuff like that. And I know right now I have a kid in the cult, adult child now, but in the cult. No relationship. So we don't want to push. We want to just be loving, right? And I do have a glass of water. Thank you, honey. So belonging is another thing. So we want to belong to we all have this inward need to belong. And this goes back, it's a primal instinct. It goes back to the beginning of man and the tribes. And when we lived in tribes, and there's a fire, and the dogs are around keeping the wolves out, we're in this tribe, right? And and there's safety, and you go out, 3 or 4 of you with spears, and you hunt down your deer, and you drag that in, 3 or 4 of you, and there's safety in numbers, togetherness. And so this is huge belonging. It goes back right to the beginning of time. Could you imagine if you're bad in the tribe? And today we still have in Canada, we don't call them tribes, but communities. We have indigenous communities of the land, and they're very advanced. They're putting in their own solar. They're doing all their own stuff. But if you do something wrong in the community, I remember one community, if you do something wrong, they ostracize you. You're basically out. You're disfellowshipped in the community. No one talks to you. No one will hire you. And if you've done something wrong. So and that goes back to the old days. If you were in a tribe and there's a campfire and you had a community of people and you got kicked out and you're all on your own, chances are you're going to die. It's a death sentence. So that's a huge thing. It's a death sentence if you don't belong. It's built right into the human psyche. So low self-esteem. Now, cults can build your self-esteem up. I know Jehovah's Witnesses, we were good with that. I used to go door to door and sit down and study with people and build their self-esteem up. And you can do that with the Bible. So that really attracts people. Purpose. Now with the Jehovah's Witness religion, we had a ton of purpose. We're saving the world, man. We got to get out there and we got to hit the doors. It's up to us to save the world. And what drove me crazy is I was thinking of India, and as I got into the cult further and further, let's say 20 years in, you start asking questions. Well, what about all those people that are going to die? What about all those people in India? What about all those people in China? And they said, well, God's the judge, but the chances are, and that's why we have missionaries down there. Well, how's one missionary going to reach 1 million people? How's that going to, well, Jehovah directs it all. I'd ask questions like I was a little child, and I would just all the way through service, I'd ask all these questions. Well, Jehovah would direct, let's say they would go down to really tell me that if they were shopping, Jehovah would direct someone else to go shopping, and they would direct them to bump into each other, and it's all Holy Spirit doing all this. Is it? Well, you see, in the Jehovah's Witness religion, there's this purpose, a push. We gotta go pioneer. That's why we need more missionaries. We need more missionaries before the end comes to fly in. You see, so there's a purpose when you're in this Jehovah's Witness religion. I don't know about the others, but I found I was run ragged just keeping up to purpose. So I had these other things solved. I had my social community. I found love. I found family ties. I found belonging. And I found afterwards that my family accepted me back, my worldly family. So I became Jehovah's Witness, ignored them, and then 5 years I ignored them. I like disfellowshipped them for 5 years after they had that intervention. I didn't talk to anybody. I was mad, I guess. I don't know. Or the Jehovah's Witnesses just kept me busy. And I didn't want to go back there because the last instance was very negative. You see, this is why I encourage everyone, if you're outside and you're encouraging people inside, don't push. You push them further in. Use love and use basically some of these same tactics. Solve the social problem. Well, we have a social community here. We're going to use the same tactics back to get people out. And so to get people out of a cult, though, you have to reason with them. And you have to be able to educate them and show them why and what they're doing is wrong. You see, if my family could have sat down with me and maybe showed me, well, we've been studying the Bible, or maybe I had an uncle or an aunt or someone they could have brought in that knew. And I did have an aunt that was a Catholic nun. I don't know why they didn't bring her in, but she'd never talk Bible with me. I used to go to the farm, and this is after, of course, but she'd never talk Bible. I used to open her Bible and show her Jehovah in her Bible, and she wouldn't say anything. I don't know. Jehovah's Witnesses are a little bit cocky, and you figure you have the truth. And so we get presumptuous, we get cocky, we think we're it. And that's another drive to our endorphins. It really boosts us and makes us feel like we're something. So these are all things. This is how cults work. So now we're looking at top religious cults. Let's go here. Difference between a cult and a religion. There's a good question. What's the difference between a cult and a religion? Well, here's a quick answer. We won't go into this too deep. A church is a conventional religious organization. A sect is a deviant religious organization with traditional beliefs and practices. So a church is a conventional religious organization. The Catholic Church, the mosque, I don't know what all the other religions are, but there's lots. But conventional means mainstream, being around for 1,000 years, like the Catholic Church. These other Judaism, Hinduism, they're older. Hinduism's the oldest religion on earth. So they're classified as religions, but now Hinduism isn't an organization. In Hinduism, I think we did a study on that, and there was something like 15,000 little sects within Hinduism, and you can kind of make your own sect. So, but a sect is a deviant, and there's the word deviant, religious organization with traditional beliefs. So that's a sect. Now, number 3, a cult is a deviant religious organization with novel beliefs and practices. So we're going to get into this a little further. It has novel beliefs and practices. So let's look into this. In modern English, a cult is considered pejorative by some for a social group that is defined by its unusual religious, spiritual, or philosophical, there's the word, philosophical beliefs and rituals, or its common interest in a particular personality, object, or goal. So let's just go over that again. What defines a cult from a religion? It's considered by some a social group that is defined by its unusual religious or spiritual or philosophical beliefs. We think of Scientology, and rituals. So some have rituals and different things like that. Well, a lot of you look at the Christian religion, the memorial of Christ's death is kind of a ritual. But the Jehovah's Witnesses have changed the memorial from the mainstream, and they've made it so that only 144,000 can partake with Jesus as his brothers. And it seems like there's almost a ceiling. If I was in the Jehovah's Witness religion today, and I wanted, because I believe that I'm one of Jesus' brothers, right? I'm going to take the emblems, drink the wine. What do? Do they think you're joking? Or do they think it's closed, there's no more room? Because if you go back to Russell when he started this, they've already filled the 144,000. It's been filled long ago, I think, if you do the numbers. So now, what are they doing today? Is it still going to grow? Because if a person feels that they're anointed, they're going to partake. And I think a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses feel that way. They feel that they should be partaking. The earth is full. Like, the earth can't hold all the people. So now, what's the difference? The only difference between a cult and a religion is the amount of real estate they own. That's something, eh? So, real estate. Religions own real estate. Cults don't. Is a cult a type of a religious organization? A cult is a small religious organization that is at great odds with norms and values of large society. Cults are similar to sects but different in at least three respects. First, they generally have not broken away from a larger denomination and instead originate outside the mainstream religious traditions. And I think this is where we fall in as Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Seventh-day Adventists. They got outside the mainstream. And if we do the research on Russell and some of the early days, we see that. We see that was part of the 1800s. There's a huge movement. And it was a fad. It was actually, if you were religious and in religion and dabbled in religion, and Russell, a lot of people think Russell was this prophet. He dabbled in religion. Religion was his side project. He was a businessman, and he was a womanizer. And we talk about Russell if you go to some of our podcasts. So what's the difference between cult and culture? What makes a group cult rather than religion? We could go on answering these questions now. A cult is a group or movement held together by a shared commitment to a charismatic leader or ideology. So there's what I was looking for. A shared commitment to a charismatic leader or ideology. And that's, you see, what we find in these religions that claim to be religions, but they follow men as their leaders. And they give them way too much honor. So when we look at the Jehovah's Witness religion, they follow worship. I'm going to say worship, because if you're not going to take a blood transfusion, or you're going to give up your life for these 9 men now in New York, mostly white, pretty much all white, and most of their pictures are all white people. They make Jesus white. I don't think Jesus is white. I was watching Ryan's video. But, they don't have an accurate view of things. They, I think at one time, Rutherford had Jesus without a beard. And Christianity actually did that. He took one of their pictures and used it. I've seen that somewhere. But here they have a shared commitment to a charismatic leader or ideology. So people are going to give up their lives for the governing body. They're going to die without a blood transfusion. They're going to take a stand, like in Russia. People are dying now. Shunning and disfellowshipping. So these men are saying, no, you got to disfellowship, kick them out. We're doing more studies on that. It's worse than solitary confinement in a prison. Solitary confinement usually lets people out to associate with the same crowd once a day for an hour. So you get to go back and visit your relatives and friends in prison. Well, in the Jehovah's Witness religion, there's none of that. You're solitary confinement for life. Some people get a real high sentence, like 25 years of solitary confinement in prison because they're dangerous, murderers, axe murderers. To crumble, it's about crumbling and their personality inside, like just it destroys people. So I think disfellowshipping is one of the worst disciplines ever. So this is what's happening, a shared commitment to a charismatic leader or ideology. Now, we can go on. Is Amish a religion? Amish, Hutterites, we think of some of these small things, and they're saying yes. The Amish, Hutterites, they're Christian groups. They worship God. They don't worship any leader on their organization. You see, where they get into cults is when they worship or follow to a death. And if we think, this blood transfusion thing, we're going to play a little piece at the end of this video from another one of the creators on blood. But blood is one of the big identifiers for Jehovah's Witnesses that this is a cult, because blood is not this whole abstaining from blood transfusions is not sanctioned by the Bible at all. So we're going to show you that later on. Okay, we're going to carry on here. Why do people need beliefs? So we all need beliefs. So beliefs in something. Why do we follow this cult, that cult, or this cult? Beliefs are our brain's way of making sense of and navigating our complex world. They are a mental representation of ways our brain expects things in our environment to behave and how things should be related to each other. The patterns of our brain expects the world to conform to it. We're gonna read an article on our brains here. But first of all, I'm gonna switch screens here, and we're gonna go to a screen capture here. There we go. And I don't know if you can see all of this, but I'm just going to go down here. We're going to look at 36 weird cults and that no one talks about. So 36 of the weird cults that no one talks about. Pardon me? Okay. Okay. So the Asterisk Society. Now, yeah, I know you can't see the. I'm just gonna change the. See if I can change the view here. Okay. Here we are. Yeah, down here. Okay, so we'll go like that. And I think I'll pull the screen in a bit. There. There we go. Okay, I am getting onto this thing. Not as quick as Owen and some of these guys, but we're getting onto it. Okay, so the Asterisk, I don't know if you're saying that, cooperating with the gods from space. So there's a big, that's a big thing now, gods from space. Aliens being the god, aliens being Elohim. The society was founded in the 1950s when Dr. George Kind received his first cosmic transmission from an interplanetary parliament that explained that Atheris, as a being from Venus, was our next Messiah. So, crazy, eh? Church of Bible Understanding. The Church of Bible Understanding, formerly known as the Forever Family, is a cult started in 1971 by a former atheist and vacuum repairman, Stuart Trailman, in PA. Trail teaches that he is the reincarnation of Elijah and knows the date of Christ's return. There's been a lot of this lately, even with some of these guys like, I know Owen was tackling Copeland. Pardon me? Copeland. And he's kind of a modern day guy. He's worth 750 million. And he takes your last 50 cents and he says, if you give me 50 cents, God will make it times 10. You will get that back. So if you give me $10, you will get $100 back. If you give me $1,000, you'll get $10,000 back. And you see, this is how he sucks money out of people. And people just want to believe. And they believe that stuff. And they give these guys money. So Owen does some really good jobs on that. The movement for restoration of the Ten Commandments. The followers of this Uganda doomsday cult believed that the apocalypse would occur in the year 2000. And in the years leading up to Armageddon, They so feared the ninth commandment, so not to bear false witness, that they spoke little and used only sign language on some days. Can you believe that? When the millennium passed without incident, the cult leaders lured everyone to a church where they murdered the parishioners before setting fire to the church. I wouldn't want to be part of that movement. Scientology. It started in 1952 by Ron Hubbard, and Scientology seeks to help initiates clear and the thetans that were stuck to them when Exnu blew up their bodies 75 million years ago. Though mostly accepted in modern culture but heavily derided, it is also Hollywood's favorite cult, with Tom Cruise leading the way. So it's just crazy. You look at Tom Cruise and I thought he's a smart guy, but he is a smart guy. But for some reason he believes this stuff. I don't know why. He maybe he's more like the leader and he's getting the endorphins from all the followers. I think that's more what he's getting out of it. Okay, the Church of God with Signs Following. The Church of God with Signs Following began updating its service to include speaking in tongues, screaming, spasming, spinning in circles, occasionally drinking poison, and snake handling. Their faithful defend their extreme beliefs by quoting Mark 16:7-18. And these signs shall follow them that believe in my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. And that's what it says in Mark. They shall take up serpents. If they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. I thought just like the apostles were given those powers, maybe the 70 others, at Pentecost, I'm not sure. But these guys feel they have that power. And apparently people die every year. Snake poison. Cosmic people of light powers. Those following the cosmic people of light powers believe that extraterrestrials communicate telepathically with their leader, Ivo A. Benda. These aliens supposedly operate a fleet of ships that orbit Earth and keep tabs on humanity. It's easy to believe that one because, there's all the things about aliens, and we watch Ancient Aliens. A lot of people get caught up in that. It's a religion. It's a cult of its own. It's a cult following. Huge. Alien cults. There's a bunch of them. The Order of the Solar Temple. In 1984, the Order of the Solar Temple was created by Joseph D. Mambro in Geneva on the grounds of existence of the Knights Templar. I wondered what happened to those guys. 10 years later, a member's infant son was stabbed multiple times with a wooden stake on orders from Mambro, who believed the child to be Antichrist. This murder set off a chain of mass suicides throughout the OST members across the world. Crazy. These guys, this is real. Like, we think, we're coming out of the Jehovah's Witness cult. We think that's bad. Could you imagine coming out of some of this stuff? Heaven's Gate, perhaps the most notorious cult of the 90s, was founded by Marshall Applewhite, who claimed to have arrived on Earth via a UFO from another dimension. In 1997, the cult's end coincided with the Hale-Bopp comet, when Applewhite convinced 38 followers to take their own lives so that their souls could pass through the gate and enter another dimension when that comet went through. I remember that. The Brethren are a nomadic group founded by a former U.S. Marine, and they have a history of raiding trash receptacles for expired produce. They've been spotted everywhere from Mexico to Canada, living in burned out cars and old barns. So I don't know if you ever heard of the Brethren. I've kind of heard of it, but I didn't know was what they were doing. So there's a lot of them. We're not going to go over all of them here. The House of Yahweh. How can you tell if you're in one of the most notorious cults in the world? Is your leader named Buffalo Bill? Did religionstolerance.org say that your cult met 10 out of the 10 signs for being a high-risk group? If so, you're in the House of Yahweh. Among other beliefs, this cult holds that Satan is a woman who appoints all political and religious leaders. So we go down. Realism. Family International is governing by the law of love, which is basically an excuse for sex. And they also have a lot of child abuse. So a lot of these cults are getting turned over because of the child abuse and stuff like that. The Russia cult of Hack-Wrench believed that Disney character from the Rescue Rangers is a divine being. Not only is she considered to be the most untouched and perfect sibling of the god on earth, but they also believe that her degree of technical knowledge is practically unachievable for any existing mortal being. Huh. The I Am cult. The philosophy of this cult revolves around pretty much every religion on the planet, as well as a possibility of becoming a millionaire overnight with only the power of your mind. So there you go. If you want to be a millionaire, join the I Am cult. You could use your mind and it just pulls in money. It just rains down. But they probably want your money first, because all of these organizations are about sex, money, and control. The Body of Christ, No Hana, Creativity Movement, the Church of Maradona, Paradise cult leader Park Suja, called Benevolent Mother by her followers, preached that the world was nearing total destruction. Her husband discovered a mass grave in a factory where her workers lived. That's weird. There's some really Freedomites. How does this sound to you? Naked people and explosions. Freedomites. If that pricked up your ears, then you may want to think about moving to Canada and joining the Freedomites. That's right here in Canada, where I live. A group that came to prominence in the early 20th century and abhors materialism but loves blowing things up. The Freedomites. I'm not going to go there. We had a trucking movement going through Canada called the Freedom something. I wonder if they were the Freedomites. Freedom Convoy, they called it. So we seen them here in our hometown. Police were watching them. Okay, True Way, there's all kinds of them. The Nation of Yahweh. What's this one about? The Nation of Yahweh is predominantly an African-American offshoot of the Black Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, we watched that on TV. How Israel, they're finding all these lost tribes of Israel. So this is the Nation of Yahweh, which was formed in Miami, Florida. Really? Okay, so their leader, Yahweh, Ben Yahweh, their leader's named Yahweh, claimed to be the true Son of God. Wow, we have the true Son of God on earth today. And he was quoted as saying that blacks are the true Jews and that whites were white devils. In addition to this, he claimed that the group had a messianic mission to vanquish whites. After Yahweh Ben Yahweh's death, the group relaxed a bit with a race-related talk. So everyone's changing. The Temple of Psychic Youth. It's about magic. It's dedicated to magic and psychic possibilities of the human brain. And it shuns the worship of specific gods. The Church of All Words, a neo-pagan religion founded in 1962. It evolved from a group of friends who were lovers, who were inspired in the fiction of this Robert Heinlein, and they recognized Gaia as well as a realm of fairies. The Prince Philip movement. So we're gonna
read that one. It's a cargo
is that a
cult.
good one?
Yeah, they're cargo cults.
Okay, so this is a cargo cult. This cult made up of members of the Yeonin tribe of Venentiu. I messed that word up. Believe that Prince Philip, late Duke of Edinburgh, is a divine being and the pale-skinned son of the mountain spirit. Prince Philip was made aware of the religion and exchanged gifts with its leaders and even visited them. So here Prince Philip got sucked in. He felt like he was some god and people had a religion on him. It does. It plays with people's heads. Could you imagine how the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses feels about how they feel? They're the chosen ones. They're the ones that God chose, and that would, I think, just build on their narcissism, and their ego would just go. And then as soon as everyone starts giving the money and everything starts growing, well, God is blessing us. God is blessing us. You see, and it just builds on their narcissism. But people want to believe. People want to believe something. So Wikipedia, we talk about cult sex. And there's a whole thing on what's going on in Canada. what's going on in France, what's going on in Germany, Russia, as far as cults goes, and there's a lot of them. So it's widely talked about right now. 3 reasons why people join cults according to cult recovery therapist. We're looking at the Scientology here. It's a big building, eh? Now, the exterior of Scientology building, this is the exterior of it on East Hollywood, which serves as the group's West Coast headquarters. So HBO's done a documentary or something on this, and they wonder how people get wrapped up in this stuff. So these guys go on to talk about how people get sucked in. They go on, blah blah blah. Some of these articles you read, you got to kind of scan them, and they go on and talk about a bunch of stuff. I got a different one here. I'm going to show you in a second here, but there was a few points here I wanted to show you out of this article. Cults are typically marketed as organizations that promote self-betterment. So these are organizations, you're going to improve yourself by joining our cult. And that's typically what cults are trying to do. Whether that means the promise of enlightenment in the case of a tantric sex cult, or the skills to make all of your professional dreams come true. If you go to the Mormons, they'll pay for your education, but you got to give them 10%. That's the deal. So if you become a doctor, it's a good deal for them because they'll get 10% of your income for life. But they'll help get you through the education process. I don't know if they pay for it all, but apparently they have programs for that. So they'll make your professional dreams come true. And then which NXIVM preaches in the form of self-help courses. And that's why people who are on a mission to improve themselves in a personal or professional sense could be susceptible to joining a cult, according to this writer, Bernstein. So here's the other point, is they want a greater sense of community. Folks who long for greater human connection may also be more likely to fall victim to a cult. Close relationships are a human need. So it's a psychological need that we have to have these relationships. By capitalizing on this, cults can be that much more insidious. So in the vow of anonymous former member dubbed Jane, is talking about this cult again. And I think that's about all and the vulnerability. So an individual's personality and life goals aren't the only thing that make them vulnerable to cults. According to Bernstein, timing is also. So timing, and I think of my situation, my buddy had a girlfriend. I didn't have a girlfriend. I wanted a girlfriend. I liked that girl in the back seat, and she was in a cult. I didn't know it. I didn't even know what cults were back then, but she was in a cult. And so it was timing. It was good timing. And this is the world we live in. So I got sucked in that way. So this lady said her former cult members, patients often tell her they would never have joined the cult if they weren't going through a difficult life event at the time their approach to join. So we think Jehovah's Witnesses, sometimes out in the door-to-door ministry, they run into someone that had a family member die and they get invited in. The households, maybe not doing so well, maybe they don't know a lot about the Bible, so Jehovah's Witnesses pull out the Bible and here's the hope for the future. It sounds really good. It's timing. Lots of people, and then they say, well, my Catholic priest didn't come and do any of this for me, and yet you're here, and I'm gonna go to the Kingdom Hall, and then they're sucked in. Timing. And Jehovah's Witnesses actually write letters to the obituaries, and they target that. That's part of a targeting aspect. We did a video on that not too long ago. So yeah, timing is a big thing. It says, according to Bernstein, people who are recently diagnosed with terminal or chronic illness, or living on their own for the first time, or experienced the death of a loved one, or had a serious career blunder, tend to be in fragile states, and therefore might join a group they might not otherwise acknowledge. Excuse me. So, yeah, there's many reasons why people join cults. Those are just a few. Next point we're moving on here. The psychology behind cults. And I just got to close this thing here because I don't want to talk to anybody. Now, this article is a private therapy clinic, and I just liked how she talked about cults here in her article. So I'm just going to read some of it. She says, cults can come in many different forms. Members of a cult may be obsessed by a cult figure or a leader they believe speaks unrivaled wisdom and consequently hang on to every word of. So if we think of Rutherford and Russell, they were phenomenal speakers when they started the cult. Rutherford was just a booming speaker at the time of Hitler, is when Rutherford was just, and he changed the religion. And no beards, that was a big thing. He wanted everyone looking like Hitler's guys. No beards, that was his big thing. And to this very day, there's no beards in Jehovah's Witness cult. So similarly, members of a cult may be fascinated by achieving an outcome or a goal espoused in a text, and after becoming so transfixed by what they believe, blindly follow the teachings or orders of the text so they can better themselves or reap the supposed reward. So like today, a lot of people might want to, well, what's going to happen when I die? Is there a resurrection to the earth? This is what Jehovah's Witnesses teach. So if you're coming out of that, maybe you want to just get right out of everything and don't just jump into another rabbit hole, because it's very easy just to jump into another religion and bang, you're right back into another cult just because you want to satisfy that belief. So they blindly follow teachings or orders of the text. So some blindly follow it. And we think that lots of Jehovah's Witnesses to this day are following it blindly. They're not doing the research. The research is available online. They want to find the research to why the Bible, the New World Translation Bible, and we had a couple shows on this, and we're going to keep going on this because the next talk is about Hort and Westcott. And I'm going to be doing that. But this Bible has 10% less words in it. And it's just an example of how cults can take it. And that's why they're called cults, Jehovah's Witnesses, because they've taken the Bible and they've changed so much of it. And that's why the religions they're not part of the religions. If you look in the phone book, Jehovah's Witnesses do not fall under religious groups. They're separate, as they're called Kingdom Halls of Jehovah's Witnesses in the phone book. Some people join cults simply because they offer answer to problems that they aren't provided. Now, today, I think we have so many answers. You can go on the internet and find answers to lots of things without joining something. Back in my day, back in the 80s, I didn't even have, there was no cell phones even, no computers, nothing. It was the microchip just got invented in 1975. I came into the cult just, 5, 6, 7 years later. There was nothing. So we had a library, and if you wanted to learn about Jehovah's Witness, you go down to the library, sign out a book. I didn't. I just believed them. Like they had the Bible. We want to believe people. That's just who we are. Low self-esteem, we covered that. Purpose. How can I talk to someone? So we covered a lot of that already, her article. Now, The Guardian is one. I don't know how much of this I'll have time to read, but Jehovah's Witnesses use The Guardian. And we looked at the last climate change. If you go to their website, the only thing they have on climate change is from The Guardian. So they use it. They quote right from The Guardian. So I figure on this, we'll quote from The Guardian. If you're Jehovah's Witness, you should want to look at what The Guardian says because they use it. So here it is, where belief is born. Scientists have begun to look in different ways at how the brain creates the convictions that mold our relationships and inform our behavior. So belief can make people do strange things, just belief. At one level, it provides a moral framework, sets preferences, and steers relationships. On another, it can be devastating. Belief can manifest itself as prejudice or persuade someone to blow up themselves and others in the name of a political cause. Belief has been a most powerful component of human nature that has somewhat been neglected, says Halligan. But it has been capitalized on by marketing agencies, politics, religion for the best part of 2 millenniums. And that's changing right now. Once the, what is he saying? Once the preserve of philosophers alone, that doesn't sound right. Belief is quickly becoming the subject of choice for many psychologists and neuroscientists. Their goal is to create a neurological model of how beliefs are formed and how they affect people and what can manipulate them. So they go on to talk a little bit about their research here and how they're really looking at a person's belief. Now they get into the 2 parts of our brain, and he says he was surprised to find that the amygdala, that's how you say it, this word right here, amygdala, it's the brain's panic button. It's a part of our brain. And it's the panic button, and it's triggered in almost 2/3 of the cases. And there was no difference in response between black and white people. So the amygdala is responsible for the body's fight or flight response, setting off a chain of biological changes that prepare the body to respond to danger well before the brain is conscious of any threat. So this guy suggests that people are likely to pick up on stereotypes regardless of whether their family or community agrees with them. So when it comes to beliefs, like picking up cult beliefs, with the Jehovah's Witness, we get into this situation where our flight mode, because the end's coming any day. So we're always preparing our body to deal with this end that's coming. So the amygdala is overactive, and it's creating all kinds of other havoc in our bodies. So traditionally, scientists have focused on scanning people's brains when they're listening to music and doing different things. They're studying the brain, and this is a good article. I read through a lot of it. The first step is to isolate a person, control what information they receive. You see, so this is what cults do. They isolate people, and the Jehovah's Witness cult is telling the members not to go on the internet, not to listen to us. They really make us look bad, and they make us look like the worst part of the world. So this is a clear sign that you're in a cult when they isolate the information that you're going to take in, and they say that they're the ones that are going to provide all of this information for you. Then you know you're in a cult. So we're going to go on here, and we're going to look at the three Jehovah's Witnesses. We're going to look at these are the websites I'm just pulling up. So if you wanted to be a Mormon, here's their website. If you wanted to learn about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, here's their website. And we're going to go back to here. If you want to be a Jehovah's Witnesses, here's their website if you want. So it really looks good. All the websites look good. They actually, all three groups kind of do the same thing. You can face the future. This is what you find. You can learn more. I went and looked at that. Now, finding real happiness, Jesus saves us, pornography can shatter your marriage. We can look at all three. I did. Now, I want to go into finding real happiness because this is where it's subtle. Okay, and it all looks good. We all want to enjoy happy, fulfilling life, wisdom for happiness, wisdom for family. It really sounds good, this religion. I think I'm going to join it. It really sounds good. Guidance for peaceful relationships, keys to contentment. Wow. Why do we suffer and grow old? Teachings that give hope. What's that about? Knowledge that draws us to God, wisdom within your reach, and would you like to learn more? Now, all of these three groups say it's all free. There's no cost, and you can learn all about this. Now, teachings that give hope, that really sounds like a good thing. And now we look at that one, and we start reading through there. God has promised exciting changes for the near future. We look at that picture. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses are really working on the pictures. And we look at the deer. Who wouldn't like to go to a park and the deer walk up and you can feed them and pet them, the animals. And look at all that food. Like there's no shortage of food, and it's good food, like it's healthy food. And look at that paradise in that picture. Look at the mountains and the lake and the buildings, and all the people are happy. Like this is what these teachings give, right? It is, right? They don't talk about some. Now, what I noticed about this, it's all Old Testament, and Psalms 37, all Old Testament. God will remove. So the only backing for this picture is in the Old Testament. Nothing. Jesus never talked about this picture. This has nothing to do with the Christian religion of Jesus. And if you really look at this, Jesus never talked about this. It's not in the New Testament. Jesus says his paradise is in heaven. He talked about the paradise in heaven. And he said, pray for it to be on earth like it is in heaven. So Jehovah's Witnesses have taken this and they made this picture out of the Old Testament, Psalms 37, Numbers. These are old scriptures. Psalms 92 and 7, God will remove wicked people. All old scriptures. Now, they use the New Testament here. God will destroy Satan. Now, Jesus talked about that. It says a God who gives peace will crush Satan. That's the only thing they have from the New Testament. Then they go back to the Old Testament, Micah 4 and 4. And then they go, God will end wickedness and death. Now, they're using Revelation there, saying the tent of God is with mankind. And then they go ... They're famous for that, ... because they don't want to quote the whole scriptures. They don't want to read the whole chapter and get the whole idea around it. But they want to cherry pick out of the scriptures to make this picture come true. That's what they're doing. They're cherry picking to make the picture come true. So they cherry pick this one. And then our Creator will make earth into a paradise. Now, Old Testament again, Isaiah, down here, Psalms, Isaiah again, Old Testament. God will bring the dead back. Now they use Acts. There's going to be a resurrection. You see, cherry pick. They only brought out 5 words. The resurrection, the most important part, they brought 5 words out of the New Testament. A little bit in Luke and John here, because it talks about the resurrection. But they throw in this paradise earth. You cannot find that in the Bible anywhere, paradise earth. It's not. You can search it. It's not in the Bible. It's not in any Bible, paradise on earth. This is a Jehovah's Witness, man-made, made up by Rutherford. Rutherford made this paradise earth up. After the 1914 thing failed, they had to get 2 classes of hopes going, a heavenly hope and an earthly hope. So this is all built upon Old Testament. The Jehovah's Witnesses might as well be Jews. They might as well be JW, put an E in the middle. They might as well be Old Testament Jews. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. We're going to show you an illustration of that from another video creator. So I'm not going to go into the Latter-day Saints, but I looked at it a little bit. Like join Palm Sunday, learn what we believe, hear what the prophets said. They're big on these prophets. They almost worship these prophets, I found. But if it all looks good on the outside, but you get into it, they worship this angel Morari. There's all kinds of weird things in their church too. They go to the Old Testament for money, tithing. Give us a tithing, give us a tithing. Jesus was nothing about that. But yet these guys and the Jehovah's Witness claim to be Christian followers of Christ. Christ said our load is light. He's not going to burden us. But yet the Church of the Latter-day Saints, you got to pay your 10%. I had Mormons work for me, and they were always begging for raises. They'd always sit down and give me the sob story of the tithing is so great. Anyways, Seventh-day Adventists, I never looked a lot at it. You can start your journey here. Choose a Bible study, picture of God, discover the guides. They all have this. It all looks good on the outside, but once you get into it, they're cults. They're all cults. So those are the 3 cults, 3 biggest cults that we're discussing. Now we're going to look at cult versus religion. What's the difference? The difference, it's not easy. Many people think they know the difference when they see it. Scientology, it talks about. In fact, early Christianity was considered just a cult by the Jews and the Romans. So in the time of Jesus, they thought there were the Essenes, all these, they thought they were all cults. Islam was long considered just a cult by medieval Christians, and of course many Protestant groups from Baptists to Quakers were considered cults by other Christians. Moreover, if your definition of cult is a group with a charismatic and a very odd leader who thinks he or she has direct access to divine and speaks a theology that seems both heretical and confused to the established religions around it, then Christianity and Islam and Buddhism were certainly cults when they began, and no doubt the Jews were cults as well. So here I suggest is the real difference between a cult and a religion is about 100 years. Once a cult is able to establish itself for several generations, we call it a religion. And before that, we dismiss it as a dangerous threat to the real religion. Excuse me. So the Jehovah's Witnesses have been around for 150 years. The Mormons have been around longer. So these guys have made it past these thresholds, and they've been categorized as religions. What's interesting is now the vast majority of the earth is outside of religion. 34% is outside of religion, and they're looking at all these religions and it costing us taxpayers money to have these religions that do nothing for charity. None of these religions are helping charity. They're not helping the food bank. They're not helping the poor. They're not, and that's what Jesus said to do. They're not followers of Christ, but they're about making money and billions upon billions of dollars. The Mormon church is very rich and they're very open about it. The Jehovah's Witnesses hide it and they try to make themselves look poor, but here yet Stephen Lett has all these properties and it's all about money. And don't kid yourself, it goes right to the beginning with Russell and Rutherford, and it's got passed down until today. So it may seem mocking, cynical dismissal of the difference and hence of religion itself, but I don't mean it that way. For there are good reasons to respect a group that can maintain a vision of how to live across 2 or 3 generations, ones that do not apply to groups that come and go with a single generation. So this guy's talking about how these cults have made it past these thresholds, and they've been called religions in today's day. So we talk about mass suicides, unhealthy practices. We talk about like we think of abstaining from blood medical practices like a blood transfusion that could save your life. These are definitely putting the groups into a cult category, and then we know that you were worshiping men that make these rules. So I'm not going to go a lot into that. We're getting right at the end of our program. I haven't looked at who's online. Say hi to everyone. Pardon me? So we got a lot of people online here. So this is to everyone out there. Super chat donation from Tadashia. So here you go, Tadashia. From the band. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so now we're going to put that aside and we're going to look at a video here. Now, who here knows about this guy? Watchtower HelpAdmin. We just found him just the other day. This guy only has, I looked at all his videos, he only has a few videos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 videos. And I watched the near-death experience of Anthony Morris III. It's just phenomenal. I'm gonna put the link here. So I was so impressed with the work of this creator and the depth that he put into this video. I emailed him and I wanted to get to know him and find out who he was. Well, I found out that I couldn't find out who this person was. They emailed me back. I don't know who I'm dealing with, and I think they use a pen name. And this person said they don't want to be exposed, so for various reasons. So I think he only has 714 subscribers. I think this video deserves Academy Award. If you haven't subscribed, I'm going to play a little bit of it. I'm not going to give away a lot of it. I asked this guy if I could use his video. He did not even reply. But I know my fair use. I can use a little bit of it. So I'm going to give you a little bit of it. And I'm going to give you the link. So you can,
Isn't this our DWI patient?
so you can watch it.
I ordered 2 units of blood, a CAT scan, and booking the OR for emergency surgery. The man has internal bleeding, so there's no time to lose. What's he still doing here? It looks like you've done nothing.
So I'm not going to play a lot of this, but that just gives you an idea of the animation. He said in his letter to me that he just puts hours and hours and hours into the animation to make this stuff. And he's working on Caleb and Sophie right now, so I'm waiting for that one to come out. If it's done like this, it's just phenomenal. So I'm going to take you all the way up to here. So this is Anthony Morris. He's dying. He needs a blood transfusion. And of course he has a no blood order. And there's a liaison right here, the nurse, and then there's the doctor, and then there's this guy. And this guy's like an old Jewish guy or something. I don't know. I watched this video about 4 times. It was so good to try to get the whole thing. So then Anthony Morris dies, and here he is. He goes to heaven.
What happened?
Evidently, I was in a car accident. I think I drove into a tree or something.
I see. It seems you may have had a bit too much to drink. The record isn't clear on that. But, according to this, you were supposed to survive that incident.
Well, I probably would have, if I had violated my faith and accepted a blood transfusion.
Okay. Head that way. All early arrivals have to see the boss.
Hi there, Jesus. It's Anthony. I'm ready to be in heaven. Just give me a horse and a sword and we can get this Armageddon thing going. Can't wait to smell those human hot dogs, Aslan.
Tony, my son, I'm afraid we can't let you in. You've got blood on your hands.
What? Whose blood? I tell you I'm innocent of the blood of all men.
Do you remember Joshua Walker?
Oh sure, that little fella. He stuck to his guns, just like me, and refused blood. I paid tribute to his faith at a convention in 2016.
And he died, long before his time. We had big plans for him. What about Dennis Lindbergh?
I don't remember him.
He was a 14-year-old who died refusing blood back in 2007. I could give you thousands of such names, but you probably wouldn't even recognize them.
We just told people about God's law concerning blood. The rest was their personal decision.
Children aren't capable of making such life and death decisions based on your convoluted reasoning. You and your cohorts are blood guilty. You used your undue influence to coerce children, and their parents, into giving up their lives.
Well, should we have told them to disobey God's law? Saving their lives just to lose their everlasting lives?
Don't you remember my telling the Pharisees, I want mercy, and not sacrifice? You were just like them, always making more rules about ever smaller minutiae. But missing the spirit of things. Imagine issuing edicts about what fractions of blood are acceptable. When did I ever mention blood fractions? Where is it in any page of your enormous Bible? I said that my load was kindly and light. I taught about forgiveness and love. I said the entire law could be summed up by love. There is nothing loving in forcing a parent to withhold life-saving medical care from their child. Love trumps laws, even what you imagine to be God's laws. But you didn't understand that. You presumed to tell your followers that God wanted sacrifice, not mercy. I said that nothing that enters a person can defile him. Didn't you realize that this includes blood? Only what comes out of a person can defile him. Words that lead to death, such as the words in the Watchtower demanding the sacrifice of children's lives on your altar of blood. These words have defiled you, and made you unfit to be in my sight any longer.
Wait! I demand to see your supervisor. Take me to Jehovah to plead my case.
Who? Oh, yeah, you're that group that still believes in the war god of the ancient Israelites and Canaanites.
You were a Jew. You also believed in Jehovah, didn't you?
No. Why do you think I never mentioned him? Yahweh was a cruel, angry, vengeful God, whom I wanted nothing to do with. I tried to turn men's thoughts to a loving, heavenly Father figure, whom they could emulate. You emulated Jehovah. No wonder you're eager to fight a war.
Oh, geez.
What?
Sorry. I mean, well, what happens now? To me?
Well, there's one thing you guys got right. Death is the absence of life, and nothing survives it. In a moment you will cease to exist.
Okay, so that's all I'm going to play. So there's more to it. You got to go and watch the finality of this show. So I just wanted to give you a teaser, and I thought the artist who made this did a fabulous job. So that brings our show to a close tonight. We thank everyone for joining the topic and joining the chat tonight. Really helps everyone, and it gives you guys as an audience to chat with each other. So I hope we covered some of your questions about cults tonight. It's a big topic. You can do a lot of research on it. And the big thing is when we come out of a cult, such as ourselves, for a lot of us, we don't want to just jump down another rabbit hole. And it's good to take some time and debrief, is what they call it. So part of the debriefing process, and I didn't realize that until I started debriefing, and the debriefing is really online here. And it's the best debriefing center. You can tune into any program at the comfort of your home that you wish, and you can gain your debriefing. And if you're in a cult, such that we have to undo all of the false indoctrinations and get that out of our minds. And I know when I was doing it, I was getting out of it, and then I wasn't sure, should I be born again? Should I be Yahweh? Should I be this or that? And the easiest thing, and like this video pointed out, is Jesus. Jesus made it very simple. And it's just all about love, having love within your homes, and it spreads to the neighbors. So love's a good energy. It's not cultish. I think if you weren't in a religion, if you had nothing to do with religions or spirituality, you'd still want love in your life. And of course, love attracts love. Everything attracts. Anger attracts anger. So love is definitely what Jesus talked about. That's what he was about. And for me, I have no issues with that. But so I hope you enjoyed the program tonight, and we're going to finish up with our little jig. So the boss says that's what we have to do. So now I get to jig with other people. So the boss has to come out and jig with me. So here we are. We're at the closing time. Thank you again, and we're gonna start our jig here. Nice. Oh. Thank you again, and we hope to see you guys next week. And we'll send out a little ad and let you know what the program's about.